Hello, welcome to our auction update show. Kevin Brogan will join me in just a moment, and it appears that sellers are continuing to withdraw. Maybe the auction bans are spooking the market just a little bit, but Kevin Brogan will give us his insight in just one moment.
Outsourcing will dramatically improve your productivity and profitability. Sure Agents have created a staffing solution to provide great staff who can perform duties in property management, sales, marketing and administration, and at a fraction of the cost, giving you and the team more time to spend on the dollar productive tasks. With rising costs and slowing revenue, the focus must be on value for money. Check it out, sureagents.com.
Yeah, it would appear, Kevin, that the auction markets or the sellers might be a little bit spooked by the number of bans that are happening. Kevin Brogan from CoreLogic joins me. Kevin, what do you feel?
Yeah, look, I think we're still in that phase where the number of auctions that we had scheduled for this week were listed prior to the significant restrictions on coronavirus. And the net result is that more than half of the auctions across the country were actually withdrawn. And as we've mentioned before, that means withdrawn from the auction campaign. It doesn't necessarily mean withdrawn completely from the market, although that is certainly a possible outcome.
Okay, well, let's bring up our first graphic for you, which are the preliminary statistics. That's hard to say. That's very hard to say at the start of the week, Kevin. Sydney, 39.8%, Melbourne, 39.7%, very close there, Brisbane, 20.8%, Adelaide, 30.8%. Not a lot to say about this, I guess. Canberra, 66.7% off 41 auctions, but 16 of those clearing. Are those, you can see the impact of the withdrawn numbers, Kevin, can't we?
Oh, look, you certainly can. But what isn't immediately apparent from this set of figures is the number of those successful successful auction campaigns that have actually been agreed prior to the auction taking place. So far outnumbering the number of auctions that have actually occurred, even though there's some anecdotal evidence that online auction platforms are gaining a bit of traction. There's still certainly a lot of business being done prior to the scheduled auction day.
Yeah, I think I read in one of your reports around about 64% of those properties sold are actually selling prior to auction. That's a substantial number.
Yes, look, that's absolutely right, and I think that is really a demonstration that real estate agents are working actually really quite hard on behalf of their clients in order to try and do a deal if the transaction can still proceed.
Okay, well, let's have a look at the Sydney numbers now. We'll take you through the top sales in Sydney, in Melbourne, also Brisbane, Adelaide as well. But firstly, let's bring up the Sydney figures, the regional figures as well. Just having a look at the totals there. For houses, 38.6%, units 43. So units performing reasonably well, Kevin?
Oh, look, I think it... Yeah, look, I mean, all of the areas have been impacted by the auction bans, but I mean, the best performing region was the eastern suburbs at 53.9%. We do differentiate between the performance of units and houses. And as you mentioned, I mean, units have probably performed slightly better than houses this week. And again, in Sydney in particular, there's an affordability issue with insofar as the houses that sell at auction tend to be very much more expensive than the units.
As we can see from our top sale out of Sydney coming out of Alexandra, just over 2.5 million sold by Brad Gillespie at the agency. Alexandra, inner city Sydney suburb, very, very popular. And I would imagine there's a lot of units in that area as well, Kevin, aren't there?
Oh, look, there certainly are. And I mean, that I think is what sits behind the statistic of the population increase. We've seen a 17% increase in Alexandria over the last 5 years. But I mean, as far as houses are concerned, average length of ownership, 12.8 years. So the housing stock is fairly tightly held. I think this one's really interesting. I mean, it was actually the guide price was set at 2.5 million, and it actually sold for a fraction above that, which shows that, you know, with the right house in the right location, you know, there is still the possibility of getting the deal. across the line.
Yeah, and good intel from the agent as well, Brad Gillespie, as I said, from the agency. What we're going to do here is feature a video that shows Andrew Burns, who was the architect on the project, talking about his brief. It's an interesting insight into the property. Here it is now.
The design brief was to create a contemporary terrace, a grand terrace, that had all that classic identity, but it was updated to contemporary life. What we tried to do at Phillip Street was create a fantastic, comfortable environment passively, where the atmospheric conditions are really special through cross ventilation, and also to create a great sense of natural light through a bunch of skylights through the house. They're always located at the edge of walls, so they wash light onto the walls and then bounce it through the space. When you enter the home, there's a great sense of calm. That's the feeling that is very palpable. I think it's a result of the materiality, the soft, crisp white tones, the soft timber tones, the clarity of the spaces, the fact that you immediately have this outlook to the green of the garden, and then as you come through the house, it suddenly opens up. So you come through from the entry hallway, you come into this great space, the grand central atrium, lights bouncing around, and it really has this anchoring presence in the house. Rather than create a sort of straight open plan space, we wanted to create that little bit of differentiation of spaces. So where we're sitting now, we're in the kitchen and dining space. I think kitchens combined with dining is a really beautiful combination. So then the living is another space on its own. So it gains its own identity and its own character. It's a coziness. We always think that stairs have great potential in houses. So it's another moment where we're trying to create expansive moments in the house as well as more intimate moments. In all our projects, we really focus on materiality. So we really want to create memorable materials. Here you can see it in the beautiful soft oak floor, or the bagged brickwork on the walls, the granite fireplace and bench tops, the timber batten screens on the front of the house, the steel plates on the sides of the house. That material richness is very important. We've used an architectural element of screens to the front and rear of the house. They can be opened up, so they've got that sense of connection to the garden. So it's privacy, security when you want it, and then openness and connection when you want that. I think this is a home for a discerning buyer, someone who recognises the qualities of the space, recognises what we've achieved in the architecture, and can see how that will enhance their lifestyle.
Yeah, delightful property, that one. And I thought that was a really good explanation about the concept or the planning behind that property, Kevin. Okay, let's go to Melbourne now and have a look at the sub-regions there. Standouts for you, Kevin?
Look, we had the outer east and the inner south at the top end of the scale here. So outer east at 61.8%. So that's a pretty good performance, but it's worth noting that in these uncertain times for auction as a method of sale, we've actually got quite a low collection rate there. So I think that will adjust downwards. Likewise, within a south, I mean, we actually had an almost 60% clearance rate there. But again, the collection rate just a little bit down. So I expect that'll trend downwards as we get the final figures in towards the end of the week.
I'll take you to a top side of Melbourne now, which is in Glen Waverley, 1,601,000, sold by Ray Whites, Daryl Wickham, and also Alan Zhang. Glen Waverley, what do we know? What can you tell us about that one, Kevin?
Yeah, so Glen Waverley is one of these suburbs that is perpetually popular. It's about 20 kilometres to the southwest of Melbourne. And we've actually seen the median house price increase slightly to about 1.3 million over the results in 2019. So the first quarter of this year, before the current coronavirus situation, the performance of the suburb was quite good. Unlike Alexandria, there's not a big push for units in the area, so the population's only increased very slightly at 3%, but the average length of ownership at 14.8 years shows you how tightly held this area is. And this property last sold in 2012 for just a shade over 1 million.
Okay, 1.6 million, or just a touch over that, was recorded. This sale at 14 Avonhurst Drive at Glen Waverley. And here's a look inside that property.
Delivering an impressive lifestyle of stylish entertaining, this glamorous family home presents a striking display of both indoor and outdoor living. The entry level draws you towards the gourmet kitchen. Then, opening out from this space is the dining zone with soaring ceiling void and adjoining lounge room boasting a gas log fire, with sliding doors granting access out to a spectacular alfresco deck and landscaped backyard, complemented by a games room studio. The upper level rumpus room presents yet another living space accompanied by 4 of the 5 wardrobe bedrooms. Sold for $1,601,000 by Daryl and Alan from Ray White.
Okay, on our journey around the country, let's have a look at Brisbane now, where we know that the the preliminary clearance rate was a touch over 20%. Our top sale is out of Barden on the west side of Brisbane, a very popular, very leafy and family area, Kevin.
Look, it certainly is, and Barden, I think, has featured in our highest sales for Brisbane before, and with good reason. All of those characteristics available within about 5 kilometres of the CBD of Brisbane. Again, modest population increase in this locality, probably because it is an area that features detached dwellings by and large. Average length of ownership just over 12 years, again speaking to the fact that it is quite a tightly held area. It's interesting, the median house price has just dipped a little, but it is only marginally, and it's at about $985,000 at the moment.
Yeah, well, as you'll see, this property was built in the 1920s and was held in the one family since then, so first time offered. Congratulations to Grant and Christina Penrose from Remax selling this property, $1,351,000. Let's have a look inside 160 Simpson Road at Barden.
And this is the first time this well-loved family home has ever been offered for sale. It's a charming 1920s home situated on a vast 1,513 square metre block of land comprised of 3 separate lots right in the heart of Barden. The home radiates charm with its period features, large covered private front veranda, big bay window in the lounge, dining room, perfect for catching the winter sun or maybe curling up with a book on a rainy day. Polished timber floors, high ceilings and timber panelling. The property is surrounded by other high quality homes right in the heartland of some of Brisbane's best schools.
Having a look now at the top property in Adelaide, touch over 30%, almost 31% in the preliminary clearance rate here. This one, another suburb that we've featured in the show before, Unley.
Yeah, Unley is one of those blue chip locations. It's only a couple of kilometres south of the CBD of Adelaide. It's interesting. We've seen through 2019, when the Adelaide market was reasonably steady, we saw some of the higher value suburbs like Unley just dip a fraction. But I think now they're actually showing a little bit of resilience because it's maybe a market segment that is perhaps a little bit more insulated from the current issues. It's quite a tightly held area. Ownership just over 10 years as an average, and the median price $975,000, which is up about 3% on 2019.
And this property is certainly achieving well and truly above that at $1.5 million or $1,512,000. John McRosty from Bell Property sold this home, and in fact, here's John now to tell us a little bit about the property.
John McCrosty from Bell Property Unley. Welcome to 46 Hughes Street in Unley. An original villa. It's got the large rooms, the high ceilings, the wide central hallway. Virtually untouched for almost 60 years. It's an opportunity, and almost 1,000 square metres. Come and have a look. If you've looked at or viewed 46 Hughes Street Unley, you know it's an original, you know it's rare, you know it's on almost 1,000 square metres, north facing rear. If you want to talk about it, give me a call. John McCrosty, Bell Property Unley.
Okay, well, that's our wrap around Australia, the top sales. Just recapping for you the preliminary statistics. Sydney, 39.8%. Melbourne, 39.7%. Brisbane, 20.8%. Adelaide, 30.8%. And Canberra, 66.7%, giving us a weighted average around the country of 39.1%. Interesting to watch this journey. Kevin, I think you said at the top of the show that consumers are getting used to, as are agents, the online auction concept. It's going to be interesting to see how it does grow, or whether in fact we see a fewer number of auctions in the future, just as the norm, Kevin.
Yeah, look, I think we've got a weekend coming up with the Anzac Day, so I think that historically has had a lower number of auctions. I think ultimately the confidence in the market, or the lower confidence in the market, will dictate the number of listings from now on in. So I expect they will diminish, even if the technology is accepted for online auctions.
Well said, Kevin. Kevin Brogan from CoreLogic will join me on Friday. We'll have a look at the week ahead, and that's our wrap for this week, our preliminary results. Kevin, thank you very much for your time, and Kevin, of course, from CoreLogic. Thanks, Kev.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. Speak to you soon.